Hallelujah, Thomas! I got the right music this time.
Yay!
Whoa, yay! Here's to small pleasures. Beer Blather 274 pretentious third world countries. There are third world countries in this world, the vast majority of them rather inconsequential tourist spots like Belize or Jamaica, Uruguay or Bulgaria. Some are free falling former empires living in the glories of a distant past attained by those long gone and buried. You know, like Spain or Argentina, Greece or the UK, although the latter might be considered second world a little while longer. And then there are the pretentious third world countries, those whose greatness is so deeply buried under centuries of mismanagement, corruption, and fanaticism, it would be impossible to even guess, given the miserable state of their unfortunate peoples. These latter shitholes resort to a tired demagoguery of agitating the Persian accomplishments before Alexander Magnus ripped them a new one, or the wisdom, industry, and prosperity of the Tank Dynasty, dead for 1300 years, or the military prowess of Alexander Nevsky or that German import Catherine the Not Quite So Great, who vainly tried to bring civilization to the barbarian hordes east of Poland. This latter type, complete with the totemic worship of the state and veneration for a people that, inseminated by unlimited waves of invaders, bears no resemblance to the original tribes. Their current population vegetates in an alcoholic stupor, exploited, abused, and easily discarded in vanity wars designed to maintain their satraps in power and the idiots in line. And these pathetic never beings, with a quality of life closer to that of a Neolithic band in the South Pacific than that of a middle class non entity in Missouri, is what some experts want to sell us as the adversarial great powers confronting our civilization. They are neither adversaries nor great powers. They are enemies, to be sure, and a primitive force more dangerous to themselves than others. Unless, of course, we do nothing. They are nothing more than pretentious third world shitholes. Some may be fourth, or perhaps fifth. Time to clear the deck, ladies and gentlemen, and to do so, this is Solomon Test Bradley, the largest human repository of useless information, from my Persian, Virginia. Yay! It's nice and cool out there. And right next to me, and this is a first, I got the right music and I got the right side. Thomas Victor, the only living expert in World War One flamethrower and savant extraordinaire, suffering every second of his life the mismanagement of Mexifornia. Thomas, how is it going, my friend?
Oh, it's good. I'm I'm in California. Uh, California is going to enact a $30 an hour minimum wage for those in what they call the tourism industry. Um, in other words, the government is about to kill the
The
tourism.
tourism.
Yep. Um, the people running, I don't even, I guess they mean hotels and the people who work at
Yeah.
Disneyland and
They're,
Universal.
they're not going to kill Sheraton or Ritz Carlton, but they are going to kill the small independently operated hotels, the mom and pop bed and breakfasts, the restaurants, the family owned restaurants, in favor of large freaking chains, who are the only ones who can manage the increase and, in some cases, replace the morons with machines.
Well, even the large hotels, I mean, $30 an hour. That's a leap from 20 to 30. That's a 50% leap in wages. So um,
Yeah,
at some point, it's going to be too expensive even for the Sheraton to operate in California. Um, For one thing, they're going to have to jack their prices through the roof. For another thing, they just did a documentary of a guy with three children and his wife. They went to Disneyland here in California, and for the whole day, he spent $1,500.
Yep.
So
Screw that.
California, the government thinks we used to have this city councilwoman named Jackie something or other, and she said that the government could do whatever it wanted because people would always come to California due to the weather. So prices didn't matter. Taxes didn't matter. Nothing mattered because the weather would overcome everything. And there was a period a couple years back where the population was going down. California needed redistricting. They lost a couple seats in Congress,
Yep. For
and
the first time
and
since
now
it became a state in 1849.
and now the population is going up again, but it's nothing but illegal aliens who are on the dole. So the government is going to tell the few tax-paying citizens remaining that they have to pay more and more and more and more and more. And it's the middle class that's leaving California. So California is going to end up with the uber wealthy and everybody else on the dole. And at some point, the uber wealthy are going to get tired of being laughed at their red carpet functions and at their meetings in middle America. They're going to get tired of being laughed at by their peers for paying 40% of their income in taxes or whatever, and
More.
they're going to start leaving. And California, it shows no sign of having learned anything from the last election. So it's not
No.
going to turn around. And
Or or haven't learned anything from any socialist experiment in the past 100 years.
yeah,
Kelly here says they killed Fisherman's Wharf. That is a nice picture. They are turning California into a ginormous Fisherman's Wharf.
yeah. There's a guy who walks around San Francisco. His YouTube channel is called Metal Leo, METALLEO, and he just films everything that's been shuttered, and just walks around, describes something, and then films it and says "gone." That's his sort of trademark. And
Hmm.
he was on Fisherman's Wharf, and everything was closed. Absolutely everything is shuttered. It's gone.
But what a pity. I remember it in the 80s and 90s. It was one of the liveliest places in America. And it is a ghost town. I mean, it might as well be one of those busted towns in Arizona or New Mexico. It's gonna be like the Pueblo House cities, completely devoid of people, abandoned by those who couldn't stand it anymore.
Uh, let's see. Okay, in 2003, they made a movie in San Francisco about the Hulk, and San Francisco it wasn't what it used to be, but it was still thriving in
Yes,
2003, and you know you could see it, and everything in that movie is now gone. Um, it's ceased to exist, and it's not coming back anytime soon. The last gasp for San Francisco, the restaurant tour, was they tried to have the customers cook their own meals. So the customers would order a steak, and then they would cook
get
it
the ingredients.
themselves. Yeah. So I mean, you don't go to San Francisco to cook your own food. Um, it's madness, and the state or the city school system announced that They were going to do away with tests and homework, and they were going to allow a passing score of 21% in what they called equity grading, and it lasted 24 hours. The Democrats came out against it. Um, a Democrat congressman named Ro Kahana said that he's from California, when he used to come home from school with a 90% in his grade, his father would say, "What happened to the other 10%?" And he said, allowing, you know, immigrant children to pass at 21% is basically, condemning them to a life of carrying, sacks of dried cement or something.
Yes,
Um,
and condemning the rest of us to a drag on our population that is going to cost us money for as long as we live and never come up with anything productive of their own.
yeah. No, California is a ridiculous state because it used to lead the country. California used to be, the blazer, and now it's just this ridiculous laughing stock that's going to keep getting worse.
I'm hoping it's not the harbinger of things to come.
It is for the blue states, but not the red states. No, the red
Yeah,
states are.
because California used to be everything,
Yeah,
everything from noble to stupid, from technology to culture. It 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 it, it kind of became or came into being in California, and soon the whole country was copying it.
yeah, yeah,
I hope that is over.
yeah. It is because California is a laughing stock when you hear about what they're coming up with. Sure, the blue states and blue cities will copy it,
Yeah,
but I mean, these are people who are now openly protecting illegal alien rapists and murderers, and they don't see this as political suicide. It's amazing.
no,
Um,
no, they are actually, um, as we speculated a couple of weeks ago, uh, ICE has become very active in New York and Boston and other cities in the Northeast, and they're catching like, oh God, the worst of the fucking worst, rapists, wife beaters. Um, they caught a woman today. She had detention orders in California, Florida, Kentucky for a variety of crimes from robbery to assault. And, and when I caught her on the street, she started screaming, Ayuda, ayuda, auxilio. And a bunch of fucking morons actually tried to block ICE from taking her to the car. And they do this following the call to action of politicians up there that are hanging their hat on the worst dregs of society.
well, exactly the opposite happened in Texas, where an illegal alien Venezuelan woman ran over and killed an American 18-year-old servicewoman with a jet ski and then tried to flee. And all the Spanish speaking people on the beach prohibited her from
Prevented her
leaving.
escape. Yeah,
And this extremely pudgy, I mean, this wasn't a Venezuelan.
beauty, no.
No, it wasn't a Venezuelan refugee who'd crossed the border and is now here, thanking God every day. She was a jet skier. She was from the upper class in Venezuela, and she killed someone, and she was going to run away.
Yeah.
Um, so it was
I remember a fat woman screaming to her in Spanish, "You're not going anywhere.
exactly, and
Stay here."
yep, and she's now looking at the death penalty in Texas.
Good.
So um, That's the difference between Texas and the East Coast, Texas and the West Coast.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, or
the
even Florida anymore.
Yeah,
You did see the sheriff from Florida at a press conference. They There was this guy shooting at cops, and he shot at he even shot at the SWAT team coming to get a hold of him, and eventually the cops shot him 68 times.
mm,
And the journalist says to the sheriff, Why did you shoot him 68 times?" He says, "I don't know. Maybe they ran out of bullets."
yeah. The what I've heard the sheriff Grady Judd in Florida say is that you shoot them until they change their behavior, and if they change their behavior by expiring,
No,
yeah,
so be it.
yeah,
So be it. But as long as they're fidgeting and trying to grab again, you have to convince them that's not the best way to go.
no. And okay, Trump announced he made us he's given able-bodied people on Section 8 um, housing and funding. They have 2 years to get off, or everything's going to be cut off. And so the Democrats started screaming racism, and in response, there was a flood of videos, TikTok and YouTube videos by Black Americans saying, "Get these lazy MFers off," force them to get a job the way I have. Trump's right. So
Yeah,
there's been a sea change, and it's going to continue in our politics. The Democrats, I heard AOC say that we need to abolish ICE. I can't think of a more suicidal political position to take, but I'm glad she's taking it.
I'm glad she's
Um,
taking it. That will get to finally the U.S. abolishing hair.
Apparently, currently, Buttigieg is the number one for president in 28, followed by
Oh,
AOC, followed by Kamala. So it's just like this is
maybe
the best thing
Buttigieg.
to do.
Maybe Buttigieg should run with Glenn Greenwald.
Well, I remember Buttigieg ran, and Buttigieg has nothing to offer. He has no personality whatsoever.
Mm. But he called himself the king of the pothole.
King of what?
The pothole.
Uh,
There are videos of him as mayor of South Bend, Indiana. You know that overqualifying experience of his, showing people how you cover a pothole
yeah,
because
we had
he,
our own mayor did that here. What the hell was
yeah.
his name?
Except that
Villarigo.
when he left, there were more potholes than before.
Yeah, same with our mayor here,
Yeah.
Villaragosa. He went out and
Oh,
showed everybody, put on a hard hat, and filled in a pothole, and he immediately became
yeah.
known as the pothole king. And I think
And
Obama.
I'm not gonna go there. I'm not gonna go there. I'm gonna insinuate it. But Buttigieg making it his life motif to plug holes is not the wisest move.
Well, he has no personality. He just there's no there. And
No.
he's almost certainly going to be going up against JD Vance, who's just brimming with personality, and it's not going to be a contest. Especially since Buttigieg was Secretary of Transportation, and he disappeared for 4 years. The current secretary, I think his name is Sean
But
Duffy.
but he launched a war against racist highways.
Okay, the current secretary,
He
I think is
did.
what?
He did.
Right, right. I know. I think the current secretary is named Sean Duffy, and
Yes.
there was a Newark airport has been struggling for years because they still use copper wires. And when Sean Duffy was informed of this situation, they immediately started installing fiber optic communications. And he says, barring any unforeseen circumstances, it's going to be ready by July. So they started in late May, and it's going to be ready in a little over a month. So that's how fast the government can work if the right people are in charge.
If there is people doing it,
Yeah,
and they have the foggiest idea of what they're doing,
yeah.
that's another thing. It's like if you expected anybody to, or rather, if you expected anything from, say, Javier Becerra, our latest Health and Human Services Secretary, uh, there was a serious mental problem with you. And now we have RFK Jr., who's frankly no better. I love the latest fracas where he announced everybody with big fanfare that the CDC had eliminated the recommendation for vaccines for COVID vaccines for children. And the next day, the CDC came in with a recommendation that children may be vaccinated depending on whether there is a risk of infection or not, which is the opposite of what he said. And there are areas of government where I guess it doesn't matter because who the hell cares?
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think RFK Jr. is grateful for the opportunity to say stuff, and that's as far as it really goes. Um, he likes to say stuff. He likes to get stuff off his chest, and I think I think Trump knew that, going into it, that he was going to be saying a lot of stuff. But
Yeah,
um,
like I said, his predecessor was Javier Becerra. Who gives a shit what they do?
yeah, I mean, I don't know. If the Secret Service said that Biden would get lost in his closet at the White House. So the according to David Hogg, who was filmed surreptitiously by one of James O'Keefe's people, Jill Biden's chief of staff was running the country, and it's like he did just about the job you would imagine Jill Biden's chief of staff to do.
Yeah.
Um,
On the other hand, this is David Hogg.
yeah,
I take whatever he says with a not with a grain of salt, with a pound of salt.
sure.
Because the guy will say anything to try to call attention to himself, but I don't think he was privy to anything going on in the White House.
Well, according to him, this was an open secret. Who knows? Whoever was running
Well,
the country did not know what they were doing in the slightest. And,
no.
you know, that wasn't the point of running the country. The point of running the country was to stuff your pockets as quickly as you could. Um,
Yeah.
and
Take full advantage of the situation.
yeah,
And I know that Susan Rice was up to her elbows in it from a very early point. Obama at the first 2 years, then there was a major hullabaloo between Biden and Obama. Apparently, Biden didn't show him the respect he deserves because Obama wasn't paying respects to the chief. That I actually believe.
well, I read an article that said that Obama has lost all his influence in the party. And I knew that when he made a speech where he was telling black men that they had to vote for Kamala because otherwise he would be very
You're,
upset.
you're not black.
Yeah, and you know
Hmm.
he
Yeah.
he he had no pull whatsoever in the last election. So nobody did. Essentially, there was nobody lighting a fire under anybody. So
Anyway, it's at about the same time I thought that Obama was protesting too much. He started campaigning for Biden in a half-assed manner. Then he did some campaigning for Kakala, but not much. And it was usually nothing more than grievance stating.
mm,
So yeah, he's gone. And unfortunately, so is Michelle. I thought she was one of the most entertaining characters in politics. Few people are that stupid.
well, she has a podcast, which I had no idea since nobody ever covers it.
Hmm.
Um, she's coming out against childbearing now, which is
Yep,
another brilliant position for you to take politically. Um,
brilliant.
uh,
There was a podcast with, was it her or was it Kakala with the Duchess of uh, York, that I thought was so pathetic, so boring, so incredibly somniferous that I wonder if there's anybody around there that says, "Girls, you need to be doing something else." Have you tried that?
well, I mean, women complaining. This has been, you know, this has sort of been how all of this is done. Um, I used to watch a YouTube channel um, about a young art historian, and all of a sudden, just out of nowhere, she started jabbering about Trump, and it was just like, okay, I used to watch you. I'm not going to watch you anymore because I don't need any more of this. And it was ridiculous because she runs an art history channel. It's a big channel on YouTube. Instead of being grateful, she decides to start complaining about half the country. And what got me was the presumption that, of course, everyone would agree with her because, of course, these are all art people. And all art people are intellectuals, and they're all, of course, going to be leftists because Trump supporters don't know anything about art, and they don't. They're not interested in art. They only like guns
And Bibles,
and Bibles and driving their tractors.
yes.
And
Which incidentally, I'm guilty as charged.
yeah, I've never driven a tractor in my life, but I did
It's
watch her
fun.
channel regularly, and I know a lot about art history. But I'm not going to
It,
watch someone who's just going to
it,
start complaining about Trump along with everybody else.
you have to come to the town fairs around here and participate with me in a lawnmower race. It's great. You get a six pack and a lawnmower, and you go and race it until somebody hits a tree.
Yeah, my brother mowed. We had a 3 acre lawn in Tyler. My brother mowed it with a riding lawnmower, and I hate lawns so much now that I saw the Hitchcock movie North by Northwest, and there's a scene at the beginning where he's being brought to this giant mansion, and they turn off the road and they go down this like 3 mile driveway, and it's just surrounded by lawn. And all I can think of instead of his predicament was somebody's got to mow this every day. If you live in that mansion, you're going to hear the sound of a tractor mower going every single day in order
Well,
to get it down.
what you get to get now, I do it because I realize that I enjoy doing it. It's when I'm when I'm on the lawn tractor, I'm by myself. I'm thinking. Nobody interrupts me. There is no phone. And if there was a phone, it wouldn't be. I wouldn't even hear it. So there. Uh, so I enjoy doing it. I do about 2.5 acres by myself. But before that, I had a service. There is the same service that does the lawn for the Virginia International Raceway, and those guys are amazing. They come in with a big truck, park it in front of your house. Out of the truck come a swarm of, I'm willing to bet my life on it, Mexicans with a couple of tractor lawn mowers and four with weed eaters. And for about 30 minutes, all you hear is all over the land. And then they go into the truck and leave. It takes me half an hour to do the 2.5 acres.
Yeah. And if you live in a mansion, um, you've not only got to have people working on your lawn and your garden daily, you've got to have people repairing everything,
Tell me
repainting like
about
the
it.
Golden Gate Bridge. Inside, you have to have staff to dust it. Forget it.
Tell me about it. When I'm done fixing something, when I'm done fixing with the last thing I did in fixing in the house, I have to start at the beginning again.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's pretty awful. I
But
would.
I enjoy it for the time being. Although as I get older, I enjoy it less and less. But I still do overall. At one point, I guess it's gonna be like fuck it, and mm,
I'm gonna end up in Vegas, and wherever I end up, I'm gonna have the lawn taken out, and I'm just gonna put in a desert scape and just be done with it. Because I hate lawns now. I hate mowing them. I hate weeding. I hate.
mm,
It's just I hate them. Um, I don't know.
mm.
I don't mind trees, but just grass. Grass that has to be mowed.
Usually
And
they come together. You see. So I don't know. Today I was working in the garden all day. I took two stumps out. And remember, I don't use machinery or anything. I just use a pickaxe and a shovel.
mhm.
God, those damn things went deep.
Oh
But
yeah,
happy as can be, I took the two out. I filled in the holes. Now a new area of the garden is finished. I can move on to the next one. And this was all wilderness when I started, and now I have a quarter acre of wilderness left. There is a little bit more on the edges that I'm going to leave for privacy, but there is about a quarter acre left for me to clear, and then I run out of things to clear. It's just riding the mower. I have proven that I have the mettle of my ancestors. I can pick up I can pick up a shovel, a pickaxe, and turn wilderness into a nice flat fucking meadow. The only thing I would have to do now is plant corn or something in there, which if a city bothers me just one tiny bit, I will.
yeah. I've always been interested in the Great Plains and how all the settlers there planted trees all around their houses because they couldn't bear the sight of this endless plain. It was driving them crazy. So the trees, were there basically for psychological reasons.
Right.
And these were all like Norwegians and Danes and Swedes. So where they came from, it was there were no planes. There's planes in Finland. I watched a documentary about a movie filmed in Finland, a World War II movie, and
Ice.
well, they were up in the northern part of Finland, and
10 months out of the year is nothing but ice.
well, it was completely flat, um,
Mm.
and the story was it was a German tank chasing a guy with gold, and the whole thing was it was so flat that they could see him within the range of the tank cannon, so they'd be firing at him, and he'd have to dodge the cannon round and everything. But apparently, the third worlder Vladimir Putin um, is amassing troops on the Finnish border. It's
Yeah,
like,
he wants to get his ass kicked, doesn't he?
well, I mean, this is. I listen to people talk about all this. It's like he can't even deal with the Ukrainians. He's having to what was the list of troops you were reading off that he's imported um,
Oh,
from
let
every
me get
third
out.
world
Yeah,
country in the world?
I actually got a list. People that have already been captured. So this is no guesswork. There are already prisoners of war in the hands of the Ukrainians that are Chinese, Iranian, Kenyans, Colombians, Ghanaians, Egyptians, and Bangladeshis.
Right, and the Russians can't communicate with them because all of them, if they speak any foreign language, it's going to be English, and Russians don't speak English.
The Russians cannot communicate among themselves.
Yeah, yeah,
It's a fucking joke. It's a fucking joke. And of course, there are a shit ton of Chinese soldiers because, of course, Xi, as usual, has been playing both ends and the middle. So he criticizes Russia with one hand and sends troops with the other. Um, but what they don't realize is what I was saying in the monologue at the beginning. These third world countries with pretensions, what we were discussing yesterday, they're shitholes. They're shitholes with no economy, no technology, no industry. What the Soviet Union managed to get in the terms of industrial prowess was completely lost the moment the Soviet Union broke up. And what you have today is a bunch of fucking drunken bastards who cannot build parts to fix the tanks that the Soviets left from the 60s and 70s. That's why Russia has nothing to fight with except, I don't know, little funny golf carts from China, drones from Iran. I mean, they're buying shit from Iran,
yeah,
from
and
China, from North Korea.
yeah. The Soviet Union produced vast numbers of stuff, but okay, there was an aircraft called the MiG-25 Foxbat, and
Yeah.
some Russian pilot flew his Foxbat to Japan to defect, and we didn't know anything about the advanced Russian
Yeah.
aircraft at that point, and everybody was shocked all over again at how crude it was. It was they were shocked in the Korean War at how crude the MiG-15 was, which was superior to the American F-86 Saberjet in one way, in that it had a higher ceiling,
Yes.
but in all other ways it was inferior. And the kill ratio for Americans versus the Russians and Chinese and North Koreans were all flying, but it was 17-1 on the American side. So this MiG-15 was supposed to be this miracle plane, and we were blowing them out of the sky at a rate of
Yes.
17-1.
Yep. And what we have now, they cannot imagine.
No,
Seriously, they cannot imagine.
well,
And yeah,
I was going to say the Russians had the largest security breach of any country in world history, according to
This
the
week.
this week. It was
Yeah.
they had their entire all their information about their nuclear arsenal leaked, and right after that happened, the one factory that built their most advanced hypersonic multiple multiple reentry, multiple entry, whatever the hell it is. It's called a nerd.
Warheads.
It's a warhead. Yeah, it's a multiple warheads. The
Yep.
factory that built this thing burned down, and the Russians say it was an accident, but apparently there's footage of Ukrainian drones hitting it. Um, and this is the sort of stuff. Remember when Edward Snowden leaked everything he got from
And another hero of the people, son of a fucking
exactly the NSA. There was basically no fallout. That there were tons of people who said this
no.
is all stuff we all know about. Um, you know, there was no great um,
Well, if you recall, he first tried to sell it to the Chinese.
right.
He escaped the U.S. and went first to China, and he tried to get a deal with the Chinese, and the Chinese said, "We're not interested. You have nothing we don't already have. Fuck off."
Exactly.
And that's how he took the next plane from Hong Kong to Moscow. And the Russians, you know, welcomed the opportunity of receiving a defector from the U.S., where he took a Russian citizenship, shacked up with a Russian something, and he's there. Well, a bunch of imbeciles in this country are singing his praises as some kind of hero of openness and free speech.
Well, I mean,
Idiots.
okay, openness and free speech don't apply to classified intelligence, but on the other hand, there was nothing there. I mean, I remember all this stuff going all
Yeah,
over Twitter, and I remember thinking this isn't anything special.
nothing
Um,
earth shattering. No,
yeah. Um, when the CIA declassified all these documents about the CIA's attempt to um, get the mafia to kill Castro. And I already knew about all that, but the documents were all put online. I downloaded a lot of them. And I learned a lot of stuff that had nothing to do with that, but they were incidental documents that were included. And there was a lot of stuff in there that I haven't heard anybody talk about. And these are all people who make their living talking about the CIA, and they haven't said a damn word about what I found. Um, they were all waiting with bated breath for the JFK assassination records to be published. They were, and there was nothing there, so everybody just moved on to the next one.
remember we used to say, I don't know what they expect to find, but there is nothing there we don't already know.
Yeah, yeah,
Nothing. And
no.
and now they want to see the oh God, yeah, the proof that Epstein didn't kill himself. Epstein killed himself.
Well,
We
okay.
knew it. I called his suicide before he actually did it. It was the only thing left for him to do. And now you have Bongino coming out and saying, guys, stop. You're going to see everything we have. He killed himself. There are videos. Say what?
Well, also, I'd be willing to bet the claim that they make is that he had a broken hyoid bone,
Which
which
happens.
which meant that he strangled himself. He was strangled by somebody else.
Yeah.
But what people don't know is that Epstein hanged himself in a sitting position.
Yep.
Epstein was a big, heavy guy, and
By the way, 20% of people who hang themselves in a sitting position have a broken iron. I,
Okay,
yeah,
Epstein was a big, heavy guy, and if you hang yourself in a sitting position, if you sit down, it could take as long as 15 or 20 seconds for you to black out. But if you jump up in the air and then come down, you can like knock yourself unconscious instantly, and that could break your hyoid bone. And
yeah.
we'll know soon enough if they release the video.
20%
But
have a broken hyoid bone. It's not proof one way or another.
well, the guy who did the autopsy or whatever, Cyril Wecht. Cyril Wecht is kind of like a celebrity coroner now, and basically he'll say whatever gets him the most publicity. So if someone was run over with a steamroller, Cyril Wecht will say, "I find no evidence of that." So um, I don't know. It's we're
The
in
guy
this
was flat
period.
as a the guy was flat as a poster, but I have no evidence that a steamroller was used.
Yeah, I mean, in a trial, both sides have their expert witnesses. They're both fully qualified. One gets up there and he says A, and the other goes up there and he goes, "No, it's not A. Are you crazy? It's B."
Yeah,
So, you know, this tells
and
you the
neither is
wide
lying.
latitude, and this tells you the wide latitude of the sciences, where
Yes,
you can say diametrically opposed things and both be able to prove it. Um, so
there are
that's why
so
I
many
always say
things.
there's no experts.
No, there are so
There's
many
so many
things.
things.
I remember when the CIA tried to kill uh, uh, Fidel Castro after the debacle of
The Bay of Pigs.
the Bay of Pigs. In Spanish, is Playa Girón, the Bay of Pigs. They tried it once. The Castro regime invented like 16 different occasions. Uh, some of them uh, Mission Impossible style, just to show the resilience of the big leader. Um, if there is one thing the CIA cannot do, is a successful magnicide. They've never been able to pull one through.
Well, I learned something this last weekend that I didn't know, that the CIA, there was a light bomber used in World War II called the A-26 Invader, and it was a twin engine bomber with a, a twin boom tail. And the thing about this thing was that you could put like 12 forward firing machine guns on it, 50 caliber machine guns. And the CIA bought a fleet of those, and they used them to try and overthrow Sukarno. Had a fleet of
Yes,
A-26s, and I'd never heard of that. And it failed because the Indonesians sent up a flight of P-51 Mustangs, and one of the Indonesian pilots shot down an A-26, and that is the only air-to-air air-to-air victory of the Indonesian Air Force to this day. But
to
I
this
never
day, yeah.
heard the CIA tried to overthrow Sukarno. And
I did. I did. It was a fairly known, but I didn't know about the plane incident.
yeah, and I know about multiple CIA failures.
Yeah,
It seems like that's all they do.
resilient. Yeah,
But I mean, okay, Hollywood always has these goons coming to get you, and they're from the CIA, and um, the CIA does have a paramilitary unit, but it's only got about 100 men in it, and they were all recruited from the U.S. Special Forces, the Special Operations Command. So in a certain sense, they're military and not CIA, and they don't come to your house with a silenced pistol to kill you if you start talking about how 9/11 was an inside job. You know, um,
No.
they
By the
they're
way,
probably they're probably happy
they'd be
uh,
very busy if they did. They'd
well,
be
they're
very
probably
busy if
happy to
they
let
did.
us all they're probably very happy to let us all waste our time on nonsense like that and not pay more attention to the real stuff, um, but the real stuff, I mean, okay, the Polish created a special operations unit in 1987 after Hezbollah threatened Poland for helping get Russian Jews to Israel. And so the Poles created a unit called GROM in 1987. And in 1991, GROM uh, rescued a whole flock of CIA operatives who'd gone into Iraq to try and destroy those mobile Scud launchers, and they got themselves surrounded by the Iraqi army. So we asked the Poles to go rescue them. So Grom went and rescued them. Um, but that was what the CIA did in the Gulf War.
Yeah,
They got rescued by the Poles.
yeah. Or what was that in Afghanistan? I remember an incident where we started capturing Al Qaeda assholes and putting them in a improvised prison to be interrogated by the CIA.
Yeah.
And there was an uprising inside the prison, and they killed the CIA guy because he was so well organized. You know how
Well,
difficult can
see,
that be?
there were two CIA guys interviewing them, and one of them had the biggest paunch I've ever seen, and he was out in the field with a rifle, and he 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 had to run across the prison was like basically a huge open compound with
Yep.
dungeons, and so he had to run across the entire field, and like he was this gray-haired, gray-bearded guy with this huge paunch, and I thought, this is the best you have. The other guy was young, his name was Johnny Span,
Yeah.
but he was recruited from the Special Operations Command, and I don't know who this other guy was. He was no special operator, at least not.
No.
Maybe he was a
But
retired special
he
operator.
believed the movies.
Apparently,
Yeah.
um, yeah, they were underground in the dungeon when the uprising happened, and Johnny Span was literally torn limb from limb by men who had no firearms, and then Al Qaeda and the Taliban raided the armory, and we ended up having to call in airstrikes, and it was a fiasco.
Total.
But they weren't searching any of the prisoners, and the prisoners had hand grenades, and you know um, that's why we shouldn't get involved in stuff like that. We should keep it
Well,
to an absolute minimum.
if we ever do, we should do it seriously.
Yeah.
We can't improvise. We cannot continue to improvise. And unfortunately, we are. I hope uh, improv time is over
Yeah.
with this Trump administration. But God, some habits are difficult to break.
Well, okay. It looks like the Indians have taken care of the third world Pakistanis.
Now,
We
the nuclear war, the nuclear war. Yes,
Yeah, remember that was as I kept hearing, they're going to enter a state of total war. And it's like, no, they're not. No, they're not. They're going to have skirmishes and air strikes and artillery strikes, and then it's going to be over.
yeah.
But okay,
The
so
Pakistanis will fight only enough so that they can say they fought.
yeah, and they're losing. They've lost. They're using Chinese weaponry, so good luck to them.
They
We
lost
have
when
the
they
third
purchased them.
we have the third world Iranians, the third world Chinese, and the third world Russians. Um, I'm not counting third world Africans because what's the point? Um,
Those are fifth world anyway.
yeah, exactly. So um, the Chinese again are threatening to invade Taiwan. I heard Hegseth today ask the Pacific. Um, what's the region? What was the term he used? Um,
Theater
anyway,
commander.
the Southeast Asia, South Asia, East Asian countries. He's asking them to jack up their military spending against China. So um,
Yeah, he declared China an imminent danger and an enemy.
yeah, and okay, China. There's a YouTube channel called China Uncensored, and this guy publishes videos that are smuggled out of China. And China has got its hands full with daily uprisings everywhere, like violent uprisings by just average people who have no jobs, no food. Their children are committing suicide. You know, I don't see China going to war just because I don't think their military would fight. The commanders don't want a war because that'll threaten their antiquities trade. So
I've said it 3 years ago when people started with this bullshit. 4 years ago, I say now the Chinese will invade Taiwan only if they learn how to walk on water.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah,
That's what you were talking about.
yeah.
And this, it's okay. Why not? At least they're not calling China a partner of the U.S. That they never were. Uh,
No,
but
no. I mean, the Chinese, the Chinese. Okay, all these countries we're talking about, they all used to be empires, and they all long for their empire back. And the days of empire are over. The U.S. gets accused of being an imperialist power, but we're anything but. We've never been imperialist. Um, it's funny, all the countries accusing us of imperialism, whew, they had empires upon which the sun never set.
yeah.
So,
Well, but let's face it. I mean, Spain, a third world country today, is not Charles V Empire where the sun never set.
mm,
Yeah. And as a matter of fact, there isn't even continuity.
no,
Uh, France, which is most definitely not the France of Louis XIV, it was never. I mean, yeah, you have to go all the way back to Charlemagne, and he was German. So, just, every time the French had an empire, there was a German behind it. Napoleon was from Corsica anyway. Um, China. What we know as China exists since 1949. It has no contact with, say, the Tang Dynasty.
no,
It's not the same people. It's not the same country. It's not the same organization. It's not the same anything. I don't know why. I mean, imagine Peruvians coming out. We used to be a great empire that covered most of South America. Uh, with the Inca dominating the Tawantinsuyu. And yeah, but that isn't you.
yeah, and there's a famous photo of Erdogan standing in front of a flight of stairs, and on each stair he's got a different.
Holy crap!
Hello.
I'm older.
Oh, okay.
Happy birthday to
Holy
You.
shit! I didn't know this.
Very good.
What the fuck? Okay, at least it's done.
to you.
It.
Happy
I guess the
birthday.
Dominican decided that my birthday
Happy
was more important than our
birthday.
conversation for a few
Happy
minutes.
birthday. Happy birthday to you.
Okay, look at that.
Many more.
That's,
Birthday
thank you,
time.
sweetie. Hmm?
Blow the candle.
Okay, I'm getting pictures now.
Okay.
Got it.
Okay,
Blow it. Up. There we
happy
go.
now? Thank
Yay!
you.
What is
There we
that?
go.
What did she serve you?
Actually, she knows I don't like cakes too much, so it's a shit ton of donuts
With caramel.
Oh,
with caramel.
And Bavarian.
wow.
And Bavarian.
Donuts with caramel, and there is another one with a
Bavarian.
shit ton of
Bavarian
powdered
cream.
sugar.
Bavarian cream.
I'm filled with
All
barbarian cream.
right. Yep, best
Now
kind.
we're talking. I'm gonna rate them in a little while. Make sure you leave some for me. My daughter is making gesticulating over there, making it perfectly clear that the idea of the donuts was hers.
Yeah.
So,
Bavarian cream donuts. Those are the best.
oh God, yes, those are my favorite. Always wear. And yeah, I'm suddenly a year older than when we started the show. Shit,
It
I
could be
can't say
worse.
I like that anymore.
Well,
Uh,
look at the alternative. The
pushing
alternative,
pushing daisies.
yeah, the alternative to not getting older is to not get older, which means you're not alive.
I'll get older. You've convinced me. The power of your logic tonight is impeccable. Um, if I send a donation, can I get a donut? Says poser index. Depending on the size of depending on the size of the donation, I might take the donut to you. It's, um, cream donuts are Bismarcks.
Bismarck's.
What is that Canadian thing?
The way I always, I didn't see any chocolate covered ones. Were there chocolate
No,
covered ones? No.
no, I hate
Um,
them.
the Bavarians that I know of out here, they're chocolate covered and they're filled with some kind of cream. It's like a what do you call it? Custard. It's like custard.
Yes,
So
like a lemon custard.
yep.
Oh, nice. Ho, AA or 66. Apparently, we are reversing the screen, although I see it okay there. But apparently, we're reversing the screens. Something I never noticed, but people don't know if it was 66 or double A.
Well, were the numbers facing you? Did your family give you the cake with the numbers facing
Ah,
you?
you're absolutely correct. It was A for you, 6 for me.
Yeah. They made the donuts for you. They picked the donuts for you, so it makes
Yeah.
sense that they would turn the numbers in your direction.
Yes, and Emery says eclair. If a
Eclair.
Bismarck is an eclair, as an eclair, I know it, and the donuts are not eclairs. The eclair has a thinner. Uh, um,
Shape. It's like a log almost.
it's like a log, but also um, the cake. You know,
Mm,
but somehow it's much thinner, and
mm.
there is a lot more filling. In the donut, it's not quite that way, or it doesn't work that way. Anyway, so 66 is a good thing we don't live into uh, 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 three digits because 666 would have been bad. And
Yeah,
I
yeah.
know people, yeah,
That's my only complaint. I wouldn't mind living a couple hundred years just to see what happens.
I don't know if I would. By the way, I'm Israel High. Today I forgot that one. I always forget something. The war is not over yet, but it will
Oh,
be soon.
yeah. I
But
mean,
it will be soon.
there are no more sin wars to take over. I think.
No, all the seniors have gone through the sinew of history.
Yep.
Um, Number two here says getting close to retirement age. My friend, I passed retirement age like a standing post on the road. When I was born, the retirement age was 62.
Hmm.
Most companies would not let you work past 62. 64-year-olds, by the way, that was the full retirement age for Social Security, which is now 67. But it was 62. And you could see in the South, anybody who was 62 and older wearing a cap and a jacket, sitting in the city squares playing checkers.
Hmm.
Um, I'm not that
My,
62.
my grandfathers both died. One was 64 and the other was 65. And they were old men. My maternal grandfather was very, very overweight. He'd already had two heart attacks. And my paternal grandfather had his one and only heart attack while he was remodeling his bathroom, and you know his wife came in and found him and he was gone. But they
Hmm.
were old men at 64 and 65. I'm 63, and I don't see any need to, like, there used to be a time when people would change their behavior when they got old. They would become old people. And I remember going to kindergarten. I remember my first day of kindergarten, and I'm still that same guy. I still wear t-shirts. You
Same
know,
thing.
I just haven't
Same thing.
I haven't changed anything. And you hear people all the time now. I people on YouTube, they always talk about, I'm giving away my age here. And it's like,
So what?
exactly. Are you afraid that some Zoomer is going to make fun of you? Look at the
I don't
Zoomer.
care.
They're children. They don't
I
know
don't
anything.
care.
When I was a Zoomer, when I was the age of a Zoomer, I didn't know anything.
No, that's why I was a sociotard when I was
Yeah,
their age, because I was young, inexperienced, ignorant, and stupid. I
yeah.
don't know what their excuse is.
Well, I got a degree in history. Find a lot of good that did me, and then I had no idea. I was like feeling my way. I only came into my own when I was in my 50s, and you know, um, your brain is supposed to continue developing. Your That's what always got me about Biden. Biden is 80, but he projects like someone who's 120 years old. There was a life insurance company that made commercials. It was a series of commercials that focused around people who were 100 years old. And there was one guy who mowed his own lawn with a rotary mower. He had a beard. He looked like he was about 70. He was 100 years old and lived by himself, very fit. And they asked him, and he said, I have no secrets. I get up and go to work. I mean, he's like 40 years past retirement, but he still works. And
Yeah,
and
I always say I want to go like my grand uncle John, with of whom I told you already, but in case there is a new somebody new on screen, uh, at 94. By the way, he drank everything there was to be drunk.
Mhm.
He smoked everything there was to be smoked. And at 94, his granddaughters decided that they couldn't leave, uh, knowing that he was alone at home. So they took him to a home. And a week later, they were called by the Manager, they had a problem, and the problem was he was helping the nurse. And I always thought I want to leave this world like Uncle John. At 95, fresh out of my own home, still helping the nurse. That's a life well lived.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I just, we're all mortal. We all come to that moment. But I don't spend any more time thinking about it. I don't avoid it, but I don't think about it. I don't think about it in terms like my brother. He's always telling me, I've only got, if I'm lucky, 20 years to live. I never think in those terms. I've since probably 1982, I live my life as if it could end at any second, and
Hmm.
it can. That's the thing. As you and I are talking, an engine from a Boeing could fall out of the sky and land on my house.
The way Boeing is doing, it wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, my brother, he's going to come out here after I told you he's. We discovered that since we're born in Venezuela, we need to prove our residency, even though we're American citizens. So
Mhm.
he's getting a real ID, and he's going to go talk to the Social Security Administration face to face and take his birth certificate and his Social Security card and his utility bills and all of that. But he was initially going to fly out here, and he's an airplane buff. He knows everything there is to know about airlines and airliners, and he's going to rent a car and come out here. The reason he's not going to drive out here is because he's got two cars here that he has to drive back to Vegas one at a
Right.
time. So he doesn't want to fly right now because he doesn't trust the airlines. And we're talking about third world countries. When you see the cell phone camera looking out the window at the either the flaming engine or the engine which the cowling panels have fallen off and the engine is exposed to
The,
the
the,
air.
nas- the nacelles.
Yeah, exactly. Um, Stuff like this never used to happen, and
Well, no, it did. It didn't get. The problem is that there wasn't an asshole with a phone every time it did happen. I I remember, of course, I was flying every day, and I remember, flying from Buenos Aires to New York uh, on a 747 from Aerolíneas Argentinas, and we lost both engines on the right side. I was told by a Boeing engineer that we all had to stand in line and kiss the pilot's balls because the survivability of losing both engines on one side of that plane with a full load wasn't something to brag about. But it did happen. Uh, we went to Manaus because it had a military airport with the main runway was like 4,000 meters, so we went for that. Um, I remember taking off on a 707 from Philadelphia, and one engine dropped. Literally, it came loose and dropped on takeoff. Um, Harrowing, but it kept on climbing, turned around, and landed right back in Philly, where I spent the whole week until they sent us a new plane. Um, this kind of shit happened, not every day. We lost hydraulics once on another 7.0. We lost the third engine on a DC-10. Uh, the only reason I had so many incidents is, like I said, I was flying every freaking day. So statistically, it had to happen. But all of these incidents usually resolve themselves without people dying or even getting injured. flames coming out of an engine. It used to be fairly normal. The whole engine on fire, not quite. But we saw less of that because there weren't people filming it. And it was relegated to maybe a couple of lines on the newspaper. Today, ooh, that sells. It's going to be online for you to enjoy time and time again. Remember the French aircraft that fell onto a beach in Africa?
Oh yeah, yeah.
I mean, for somebody in the aviation industry, every day you know something. At Miami International Airport, every day at least one plane turned around and came back because of engine failure. Every day. Now, that doesn't mean the bodies were piling up, but it happens. It happens. It's not as uncommon as people think. Um, China recently supplied a lot of substandard plane parts. Yeah, but not a single plane maintained in FAA shops in this country has them. So don't worry about that. Flight traffic has gone up a lot since COVID shut it down. They're back to pre-COVID levels. Not much, not much higher than that. Not much higher than that. And I see that Sarah Bangas, Thomas, is telling me that her husband's grandfather was 80 and his nurse 28 when he pulled an Uncle John. Uh, damn.
Yeah, there's there's no accounting for the taste of chronophiles. There's people who are obsessed with any age. I just saw something about a spin-off branch of the Mormons, and it was run by a guy who called himself the Prophet.
Hmm.
And when he was in his mid to late 80s, he announced that all the teenagers and women in their 20s had to marry him. So he ended up having 30 wives, and there are all these horrifying pictures of them kissing. He's like 85, and
Well, was that in Colorado?
yeah, it ended up his son took over after the prophet croaked,
No.
and he lowered the age of marriage down to illegal levels. And the funny thing is that he moved his cult to Texas, and they were completely kept isolated from the world. And so after he was put in jail for life, nothing changed. He's still running the cult from prison.
From prison.
And at some point they rescued 300 underage girls, and then they found out they had nowhere to they couldn't do anything with them. They all had parents. These were all a lot of them were pregnant, and it was just going to completely overwhelm the system. And they ended up just kind of letting them go back to the cult because they were so damaged that, I mean, they didn't.
There's nothing you can do at this point.
Yeah. And I don't know. It's any 28-year-old nurse who's like, fooling around with the 80-year-old nursing home patient. I don't know.
Well, bite your tongue. I hope there is one around when I'm 90 in the home.
I'd be embarrassed. I saw a picture of.
Well, look at Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
He was in his 80s when he married Ona O'Neill and had Ona Geraldine Chaplin.
Yeah, and he was this bloated old man. He looked
Yeah.
it was embarrassing.
But look at that. That gave us Geraldine Chaplin. You never know. A friend of mine, a writer, uh, too much of a lefty, but a good person. He married a student of his in La Sorbonne. He was 82 and she was 40, and they had twins. So at 82, he became the father of twins. His older son was already 60. Can you imagine you're 60 years old? Here's your new brother.
Yeah, and how long did he live after he had the new kids?
About six. I helped him set up the
Yeah.
provisions
So
to
he
ensure
quote
that the
his
wife could do it.
he died
Picasso, the
when his
same thing.
he died when his kids were 6 years old.
Yeah, imagine that. He died making babies and not having to live with it. But, you know, it
I,
works for many.
I'd just be embarrassed. I'd be embarrassed um, when I see
I'd be embarrassed if somebody opens the door on me.
well, when I see old men with really young. Okay, there's a football coach who's 75 and he's got a 23-year-old girlfriend, and she's like, "I'm
Yes,
really in love with him." And it's like, oh,
bullshit. You know that's the money.
well, she's the coldest-eyed looking woman I've ever seen in my life. She looks like
Anna,
she.
Anna Nicole all over again.
Well, see, the thing about yeah, I'd just be embarrassed. I couldn't do it. I mean, I'm 63. I suppose I could date a woman in her 40s, depending on what the situation was like. Okay, Humphrey Bogart was 45 when he met Lauren Bacall, and she was 18, but it somehow worked for them. Um, she always looked a lot older and presented a lot older. But that football coach and his granddaughter aged girlfriend, they don't make a good couple.
No. Notice that none of the examples that I gave you constitute couples. It's just sport. Too crazy. Uh, Elon is on pace to break that guy's record. Elon is a young guy still. Kelly's father was another rascal, I see. Not today, but next time I'll give you a poem about an ancestor of mine from the late 1400s. Um, and it's an interesting story about this guy that in the conquest of Granada, he is wounded and he's taken to a room and everybody is waiting for him to die. And the wife comes into the room and he gets this massive erection. And then everybody knows he's going to leave. A poem from 1490, give or take. Uh, Some things have provided entertainment for hundreds of years and still not. Even Shakespeare used to.
Yeah, the historian Barbara Tuchman wrote a book called A Distant Mirror, and most of it is based around a manual that a middle-aged knight wrote to his young bride, his teenage bride, showing her, telling her how she was to run the household, how she was to cook, how she was to clean, etc., etc., etc. And you know, she didn't know how to do anything. She was a baby. This was the 14th century, and he married her because he could look
That's what
forward.
people did.
Yeah, he could look forward to years of pumping out babies, because in those days, what you had a
By 30, Yeah,
Well, you had what, maybe 30% of your kids would survive. Um, but
yeah,
the interesting thing about the book is, this guy knows everything. He knows about sheets. He knows about laundry. He knows everything, and she doesn't know anything. So he's it's a manual. It's a manual about how to be his wife, and it's written. It's not written harshly or anything, but it's just really an amazing sort of thing. Like he had to sit down and write it, and of course, in the 14th century, it was written. It was handwritten. It's this thick,
yeah.
and um, with a quill. He wrote it with a quill, and she was from the upper classes, so she could read. But no, she started every day reading her manual how to be a wife. I think he was a knight, so he was off battling a lot of times. And when he came home, he wanted his eggs made in a certain way, that sort of thing. Um,
Well, after a day of battling off with the Saracens, you want your eggs a certain way.
I don't know. I just don't know.
Oh, but look at that. And all the countries that produce that kind of shit are what today?
Socialist.
Gee, we need more of those knives. We need them to come back alive.
Well, what's really fascinating about the knights, the horses that they used were basically what we call Clydesdales today,
Hmm.
because a knight,
Huge, huge fucking beasts.
yeah, because the knight was gigantic, and then he was armored. He wore chainmail armor, and then he wore steel armor over that, and the horse had to be strong enough to carry the guy, but the horse also was used as a battering ram. Like when knights would
Yeah,
charge each other, they would just crash into each other, and the whole goal was to knock the knight off of his horse, because a lot of times he was too heavy to get up.
he couldn't get up.
He couldn't get up. Um,
Yeah,
so I mean, those guys. I used to think about it. Okay, in World War One, I have all these old postcards. You never see a fat guy. You see like 50-year-olds, and they've got 0% body fat. And it's because 100 years ago, everybody walked everywhere. Everybody lifted everything by hand. Everybody, was constantly doing manual labor. Even in the upper classes, like, okay, around the turn of the century, there was that. Okay, like if you look at, they've reconstructed the menu for the Titanic, and it's like, 8-course dinners. You look at what they would have been served for dinner, and it's like 8 dinners, and people would gobble those down, and that's why the aristocracy were like these huge fat guys, but everybody else, they were doing nothing but manual labor all day. They walked everywhere. They didn't have enough money to, if there was even public transportation. So if you go back to the 14th century, holy shit, people didn't live very long, but Jesus Christ, they were like, you look at the bones of those people, and you can tell how much the woman who lived in the house next door was born in 1896, and she had massively strong bones. Like at the end of her life, she started falling all the time, but she never broke anything,
mm,
because she'd spent her entire life walking everywhere and lifting and scrubbing and scraping and doing all her dishes by hand and doing her laundry by hand. So back in the 14th century, all those knights, their bones were like twice as strong as ours. Like nobody ever had osteoporosis.
they
Um,
were indestructible, my friend. If you manage to survive all of the infectious diseases from teething through scarlet fever, and you didn't contract leprosy or tuberculosis, by the time you reach the ripe old age of 50, You were an Iron Man, and they generally live to be 90
Yeah, yeah. There's all these like these knights, these warriors who are like 75 years old
and still fighting.
and still
And
fighting.
yeah, and when Cervantes wrote Don Quixote, uh, Don Quixote wasn't a spring chicken.
No,
He was an old man already when he decided to, it's time for one more night. And by the way, the interesting thing is that Cervantes was doing what we are doing now, complaining that society had gone to shit and we need a night to put order again.
yeah, yeah. There's a famous quote about how the young people of today are like slovenly bastards, and they don't respect their elders, and they have no desire to work, and blah blah blah. And it was written by Plato, you know.
Yeah,
So
so I guess some shits are old, some shits older than the Greeks.
yeah, no, it's I'm actually I'm very optimistic. I knew that the Indians and the Pakistanis would not get into a nuclear war. I
No.
know that China is not going to invade Taiwan. Um, I know that at some point, I guess the Ukrainians came very close to getting rid of Putin for us. He took off in a helicopter. He tried to flee the Kremlin in a helicopter in the middle of a drone storm. Um, the Russian oligarchs are fleeing Moscow at this point.
Yeah.
So I don't
They're
know.
more. They're probably more in Paris than in Moscow.
Yeah. So we may we may be close to some big change. The Middle East, we took Syria off of the state sponsor of terrorism list.
We're opening an
So
embassy in Damascus.
yeah,
We're opening a
yeah.
fucking embassy in Damascus. If, I don't know if people realize how weird that is, and
But it's
reason
also
to be
brilliant.
optimistic. Yes,
It's brilliant because we're not making Sarah grovel. Trump
no,
met him. He shook his hand. He spoke to him. They posed for pictures. And he's when Sarah asked, "Can you open an embassy? Can you?" It's done. So
yes,
Trump is building up this giant reservoir of goodwill.
yep. And by the way, he said what we said. Uh, I don't know. I don't know if this guy is gonna work or not. I don't know if he's still ISIS or not. But we're gonna give him a chance, and we're gonna
Yeah,
keep an eye on him. And if it works, it works. And if it doesn't, well, we know what we have to do.
yeah. We're going to take him at his word. No reason not to at this point. Um, but see, Syria is a perfect example of outrageous, uh, uh, fabrications. Oh, Syria is on the verge of collapsing into the worst civil war it's ever had. There's no evidence of that. Um, the there were factions of the jihadis who did work with Sarah, who started going after Christians and Druze on a small
Yep.
scale, and they were stopped by the Syrian government. What people don't understand is that Assad's government is still there. Um, the Sarah did not overthrow the government. He very specifically
He took over it.
he took over the government, but he kept everything in place.
Hmm.
And I keep seeing demonstrations, whether celebrating or protesting. Nobody sends troops out to mow them down. Nobody. It's not Iran. It's not China. Um,
No. And it's not Switzerland because we know
exactly.
where they come from. we know where they're coming from. So a certain degree of instability, a certain degree of armed groups popping here or there, it's going to be the normal for the next couple of years at least.
I read that the number one people granted German citizenship are Syrians. So the Germans are importing Syrians and making them Germans. And I just wonder what they're thinking. I wonder what the Europeans are thinking with all of this, with the wholesale import of third worlders who do not fit in on any level. Um, I just wonder what they're thinking. Like what do they think Germany is going to be like in a few years? What do they think France?
Uh, as, at this rate, a shithole.
Yeah,
Uh, Germans were very stingy with citizenship until 2005.
yeah.
We had generations born in Germany, descended from the Turks that rebuilt Germany after World War II, that were not considered German citizens. And of course, by the fifth generation, they didn't speak Turkish. They were, to all effects and purposes, more German than sauerkraut and club mice. But the state refused to recognize them.
Mhm.
They did the right thing, I believe, when they extended citizenship to these folks. It was by now inevitable. But the problem is that then they went overboard and they give citizenship to any asshole who washes onto Germany's borders. And during the Angela Merkel years, that was a couple of million assholes. And she came out of hiding this week, eh, still advocating for the need for massive immigration in Germany. And I don't know, they really want, they have the vocation to become a fourth rate country.
Well,
Their industry is already shit. Their economy is
exactly.
already tanking.
Exactly. I mean, the Germans were known. The miracle of West Germany was the fact that they recovered their industrial base so quickly after World War II, and now they're voluntarily destroying it.
Yeah, it's weird what they're doing. And it's not all of Europe. New Europe, that is, the countries that came out of the Warsaw Pact with a yearning to become Europeans and go from the Trabant and Lada to the Beamer and Land Rover, they don't want anything to do with this shit. They say, wait a fucking minute. I just became a European. I don't want this whole thing to turn to shit. Hungary, Poland, they're at the vanguard of the resistance to Merkel's bullshit.
No, and you're not proving anything by destroying your own industrial base. You're not showing how moral you are or how um, you know what a good global citizen you are when it comes to
You're an
protecting.
imbecile.
It is. It's stupidity. And what happened was that they invented all this crap about climate change, and then they started believing all the stuff that they invented themselves. They
Yeah,
What I came to understand about leftists is that they are experts at not brainwashing others, but at brainwashing themselves.
themselves.
And
Look at all the shit with global warming and environmentalism and all the jazz. Not even Greta Thunberg talks about it anymore. Now she's too busy being an anti-Semite. Incidentally, any moment now she's going to land in Gaza with 14 Palestinian activists. Uh, I hope she sees the last of her days inside a tunnel under Khan Yunis.
Has she really gone to Gaza?
Yes,
Wow.
yes, she's almost there now. But the thing is, not even this stupid cow is talking about the environment anymore. Now everything is about Palestine and the evil Jews. They change. They get tired of the toy and move to the next piece of bullshit with more frequency than they change underwear.
And what's hilarious is that protesting against Israel is even more futile than what they were doing before. And I saw a picture of Greta. She's wearing a keffiyeh around her neck, looking
Yeah,
very grim. And it's really stupid because Middle Eastern women don't wear keffiyehs.
no. And if she fell into Iran dressed like that, she would probably hang,
Well,
literally.
they love beating people in the Middle East. But yeah, I mean, okay, she's going to Gaza. If she's lucky, she'll survive. But I mean, what is she planning on doing? Um,
Confronting Israel, whatever the crap that is.
okay, so she's going to appear on the battlefield, and they're not going to be able to hear her over the roar of artillery and tank fire.
No.
And they're going to see
It,
somebody wearing a keffiyeh, and they're just going to mow her down.
of course, there are others waiting, so she may not land in Gaza after all. Um,
Well, there's no way that she could actually go on a direct line from Europe to Gaza.
no, it's a charter boat. It's
Oh, okay. What they're going to do is
12.
they're going to board it with the Israeli Navy, and
Of
that'll be
course,
the end of
there,
that.
there are 12 Palestinian activists from Europe because they're going to join the resistance against Israel. It's like these people, whatever drugs they're having, they need a better supplier because this is not good for them. They need to change
Well,
the brand.
okay, Greta. How old was Greta when she started all that shit?
I don't know, 14.
14, 13. So she's 20-ish. Um, she's
Yep.
completely irrelevant. Nobody cares anymore. Um, European supporters of Hamas are a dime a dozen. Nobody cares. Um, Hamas is on the verge of extinction. Um, Hezbollah is long gone. I saw an Israeli special forces operator explain that the reason Hezbollah was defeated so quickly was because the Biden administration put no pressure on Israel to not defeat Hezbollah, because the Biden administration had Gaza on the mind, and as far as they knew, as far as the Biden administration knew, Hezbollah didn't exist. So the Israelis were able to defeat Hezbollah in 3 weeks by using technology that they were specifically banned from using in Gaza.
I know you're going to love this.
Wow. Okay, see, look, before she even left, the trip was already a failure. Everybody's saying, let's hope it's a one-way
It's
trip.
a one-way.
Yeah.
That's what I say. This was published today. Yeah. She's sailing to Gaza this weekend aboard a humanitarian aid ship. Voyage critics are urging her to buy a one-way ticket for. The 22-year-old climate advocate, whatever the fuck that is, along with
She's
several
advocating.
high
She's
Hmm?
advocating for a climate. That
Yes,
means that
I want to climate too.
yeah, we all do.
So she's embarking on the Madeleine from Catania. By the way, Catania, ironically, is right next to a major U.S. base in Singonella. Uh, on Sunday to deliver vital supplies to Palestinian people in Gaza and protest to deliver supplies. Did you see the massive warehouses of supplies in Gaza?
Well, three-quarters of the population in Gaza is suffering emergency or catastrophic food deprivation. Then why don't we see any starving Gazans?
Because they're huge warehouses.
Exactly.
Um, oh, they want to protest the Israel blockade, which, as you know, doesn't exist. Protesting the Israeli blockade is like protesting Greeks' occupation of Troy.
Yeah.
There is no Troy, and the Greeks today don't occupy anything other than the local tavern. Um,
Yeah.
that
Scroll down,
you
you can
know,
see your little face.
yeah. By the way, since Gaza has a whole fucking border with Egypt, Israel cannot blockade Gaza even if they wanted to, without
No,
going to war with Egypt.
they're not blockading anything. They're searching vehicles for weapons. Big deal.
Yeah, but not on the Egyptian border. Egypt does that, not Israel.
Yeah.
Hmm?
There, okay, look at her. She's a grown, grim old lady now. Look at that. She's only
Yeah.
22. Look at her.
Well, if I had the sexual prospects of this woman, I'd probably look just the same. What a that that's the definition of incel.
The world cannot be silent bystanders. I don't think the world has been a silent bystander. I think Israel has gotten nothing but criticism, except from the U.S. and
Yeah,
whatever. The Freedom
yeah.
Flotilla Coalition.
This silence and passivity. Where the fuck is the silence and passivity? We have Macron, Starmer, and Sanchez recognizing a state of Palestine that nobody knows what the fuck it is, where it is located, and nobody knows where to open the embassy. But this is the silence and passivity. We are seeing a systematic starvation of 2 billion people. It
No,
was
we're
one
not.
and a half billion people. Number one, it was 1.5 million people to begin with. So there was apparently a formidable demographic expansion. Uh, but nobody is starving.
Nobody's starving. They're all overweight.
They eat better there than in Ohio.
Okay,
Every
we
single
need to
one of
fight for a
us.
free Palestine.
No, I don't. I actually no, I don't. I resent this stupid
Also,
cow telling me what I need to
she's not
do.
fighting for anything.
No. By the way, this will mark the
What?
second attempt in
Okay,
as
go.
many months, because the last time they tried this, they were attacked by drones off of Malta and forced to turn around.
Well, why do they think anything different's going to happen?
Oh, because they don't think. Now, this is the boat. This is the actual schooner they're
That's
going
the
to
boat.
use. That's the dinghy.
Okay,
That's the. Look
how
at the
much?
Palestinian flag in front.
Well, also, how much are they bringing to the starving Palestinians in that thing?
Uh, 2 bottles of scotch and a postcard. Because
Yeah.
that shitty boat with 12 people on top of it, besides the crew, because I'm pretty damn sure that neither her nor the other activists would know how to sail in a bathtub. Yeah, what is the cargo capacity of this thing? Oh, look at this. The other one's going there. Uh, where is it? Oh, yeah. Game of Thrones. Where the hell is it? Actor Liam Cunningham and European Member of Parliament Riba Hassan. Riba Hassan is a bitch on steroids. Will also be on the Madeleine, but critics zeroed in on Thunberg's participation. Yeah, because she's a nobody, but the rest of them are real fucking nobodies. With many suggesting the young activist stay put in the war zone. I suggest that too. I think she should
Oh God! Oh no! Too bad.
stay there. She
Liam
should stay there.
Liam Liam Cunningham is actually a good actor, but he's British, so of course he hates Jewish people. So too bad.
Yeah. Sky News Australia, Danica de Giorgio, named Thunberg her bid loser of the week. She's sailing to Gaza like it's some sort of idyllic holiday destination. She really is annoying at all times. She's such an urban terrorist herself, she'll fit right in. But I'm also wondering if it's a secret deal from the Israelis. All the Hamas terrorists will leave if she's inflicted on them. But actually, yeah, I have to think this is a possibility. It's Israel's secret weapon against the Palestinians.
Well, okay. Scroll back up. Scroll up. Let's see. Keep going. Keep going. You're going to see some pictures. So scroll up to pictures. It's going to be above the boat. Okay, there. There. Climate activist Greta Thunberg bursts into laughter as she declares, "Fuck Israel" at rally. I mean, fuck Israel. I mean,
She's
well, that's how seriously we need to take her. Fuck Israel.
she's got Asperger's.
Well, that's her commentary. Fuck Israel.
Yeah,
Okay.
and she laughs at it. But anyway, she laughs at herself saying "fuck Israel." What a turd! What
Well,
a turd!
it's childish. It's like Robert De Niro saying "fuck Trump." I mean, it's childish. Um, this is
Well, she is a retard.
well,
Let's face it.
she's when she really okay when they're making murals of her. What an embarrassing time period that was. I'll never forget. She's at the UN, and like Trump came in, and he very pointedly walked right past her without
Yeah,
acknowledging her, and she
but
glared at
and
him
she looked at him
uh,
with
just
hatred.
shot daggers at him. Um,
But you see, every major newspaper is reporting on the moves of this retard. She's a
yeah,
5 year
yeah.
old. She's a
She's a
5 year
what?
old. A 5 year old. She's got the intellectual development of a 5 year old and not a very bright one. There's nothing
Well,
in
I mean,
there.
this plan of hers. Okay, she's not taking any substantial food. She's claiming that she's fighting for the Palestinians. She's doing no such thing. Um, Her commentary on this geopolitical crisis is "fuck Israel." She supports terrorists who are doing stuff that would have made the Japanese imperialists puke. Um, I mean, how is one to respect her or take her seriously or
You
anything? I
can't.
mean, she's a toxic buffoon, and you know all these people are. They don't actually care about the Palestinians. Liam Cunningham needs to pick up an AK-47 and take on the IDF. Let's see how long he'd last.
I suggest we strongly recommend to all the sailors in this uh, 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 buffoon express. to pick up an AK-47 and go and fight the good fight for the Palestinians for as long as they can.
Yeah.
Uh,
No,
all,
people.
all of 14 seconds.
The the siege of the city of Mosul, the Islamic State had over 1 million human shields, and the the Iraqis and their allies took the city in about 6 months,
Yeah.
and the civilian casualties were not. I mean, what's that? Human Rights Watch praised the Iraqis for doing the job they did, and the Israelis are doing a much better job than the Iraqis did.
And they get the condemnation from Human Rights
Of
Watch
course, of
because
course,
Human Rights Watch has always been shading for terrorists.
yeah, yeah, and you know, it makes you wish in the darkest corners of your mind that the Israelis would show the world what they could do and just wipe out all of Gaza in one afternoon and say, "There, what do you think of that?"
Okay.
Um,
Well, they're going slower but methodically. There isn't a building left in Rafah now.
mhm,
And they just moved all of the construction equipment to Khan Yunis, where they are proceeding to methodically and systematically demolished every last shell of every last building.
mhm,
Remember when we used to say, perhaps at the time, uh, hyperbolically, that Israel needed to turn Gaza into a parking lot?
mhm,
Now they're doing it.
mhm. No,
And I'm all for it. I think everybody should be either dispatched to the netherworld or exiled to the dunes of the Sahara.
yeah, no. I mean, there are Palestinian outliers, but for the majority, I mean, this is a death culture. This is a death cult. Um, they celebrate when their people murder Jewish people, and they celebrate when their people are killed violently. Um, they can't be rehabilitated, so you
Uh,
wipe out the areas, you wipe out all the ones that pose a physical threat, and then you disperse. What is the line? It's Samuel 22:1 or something. It's like I did I did I did stamp them like the mire of the street and spread them abroad. And
yeah,
you know that's what needs to be done, because they've had their time. They had the world on their side. They had the UN on their side. Their little leader got to go to the UN with a loaded pistol, and everyone fell in love with Yasser Arafat and said, "Oh, he's so sexy." Um, and they had their time, and then they pulled an action that they thought would turn the entire Middle East against Israel, when the exact opposite happened, and that's that.
yep. Right now, most of the Middle East is backing Israel unabashedly. Look at this. Hamas executes Palestinians for looting as desperation grows under Israeli blockade. This was May 4th. Today, uh, Hamas executed 19 Palestinians and then proceeded to cut hands and feet of a couple of score for stealing supplies from the warehouses that Hamas has reserved for itself.
Yeah, yeah. It's a Hamas blockade. It isn't an Israeli blockade.
Exactly. Now the thing is, about 19 people executed, which is in addition to the 13 on May 4th, and God knows how many more. Uh, for all of these leftist assholes who support Hamas without trial, without even a cursory military process. They pick 19 people off the street and kill them against a wall, much like the Dirlewanger Brigade used to do, or the Hampshire Brigade. Then they pick 20 some people and they start cutting legs and hands because they stole something. How can they defend this shit? How can anybody do it? How can Macron talk about genocide? How can Witkoff announce today a new ceasefire agreement, which of course Hamas rejected, according to Witkoff, with demands that are unacceptable? No shit, Sherlock. You're negotiating with terrorists. What did you expect? And they keep doing it.
Let's see. Okay.
And then, yeah,
In 2014, the Palestinians claimed that about 2,200 Palestinians were killed. And Fatah said that at least 100 of their own people were just summarily executed during the month-long war with Israel. Hamas just took this as an opportunity to murder 100 members of Fatah. Okay.
they sound like Nazis. Mass graves with people with their hands tied behind their backs. Bodies buried deep in the ground and covered with waste. Among the deceased were allegedly older people, women, and wounded people.
Yeah, but this
Obviously,
article
wounded no more.
this article is claiming that the Israelis did it.
No, the Israelis didn't do that.
I know, but this article is saying that they did it.
No, citing the local health authorities in Gaza, eh, more bodies have been found. Israel killing the wounded,
No,
tying people's hands.
go back, scroll back up to the top.
Yeah, because remember, the article is the UN
Yeah,
report.
renewed concerns about possible war crimes. So they never refer to Hamas atrocities as war crimes. They're
But
accusing the Israelis of doing it.
but they don't have the balls to accuse Israel, so they kind of like leave it bouncing there. But the fact is that the mass graves exist, and the killing of the wounded and the opposition is routine for Hamas.
Yeah, yeah. But see, okay, the people in the West who support Hamas will just tell you that all of that is Jewish lies. That's it.
Yeah.
In 2014, the Western press reported that Israel had dropped over 15 times the explosive power of the Hiroshima bomb on Gaza. So what I did, just for my own curiosity, was I tallied up. The Israelis keep a meticulous record of the munitions they use.
Yes.
I tallied it up, and it was like 1/10 of 1% of one Hiroshima bomb, not 15 times the amount of the
Yeah.
Hiroshima bomb. But people will read that and they'll go, "God damn!" The Israelis dropped.
They were saying the same thing last year.
Yeah,
They were saying the same thing last year. Israel dropped 3 times as many bombs in Gaza that were dropped in the European theater throughout World War II.
which
You gotta
is
be fucking shitting me.
no. I mean that's absurd. That's so retarded that it boggles the mind. Um, one flight of okay, at some point we were sending like 1,000 plane fleets to bomb
Preston.
Hamburg, and one, the British were sending 1,000 plane fleets at nighttime. Those are 4-engine strategic bombers. So simply one of those missions would be more munitions than the Israelis have used in Gaza.
Yeah. Not to mention the fact that we were bombing everything. Well, it was really carpet bombing. And the Israelis kind of pinpoint.
Yeah, and also the Israelis are using uh, uh, for anti-personnel munitions. They're using blast effect. We had no such thing as blast effect munitions in World War II. They were all explosive
Yes.
fragmation.
TNT.
Fragmentation. Yeah.
No, it's utterly absurd. But anyway, I'm so tired of having the same argument with the same idiots, um, that it's painful. I'd rather look at the whimsicality of this Swedish retard on a schooner going on to vacation at Club Gaza. Um, it's it's too precious. It's too funny.
And Wikipedia has gotten really stupid.
No, no shit. Come on,
Oh,
you
here
know
we
better
go.
than that.
Armament. Um,
I await with anticipation the moment that Wikipedia ceases to be.
okay, a B-17 could carry 8,000 pounds of bombs. So you figure in a 1,000 fleet, that's 1,000 times 8,000. That's 8 million pounds of bombs. That's one mission.
Yeah,
So
one day.
one day exactly, and the war in Europe began in 1944 and went on till May of 1945. So it was about a year. Okay, think about this. They're still digging up bombs from
Yep.
World War II in London.
They found one in London not too long ago.
Yeah,
Every time they dig for a new building on the east side, they find another one.
yeah. Well,
Conquistador is asking us, are we going to do anything public to ban CARE or the Muslim Brotherhood? I've lost hope. I have no idea why it hasn't been done yet. No idea. And I can't say that we don't know. I can't say the administration doesn't know. I have no idea why the delay, so I've given up trying to figure it out.
yeah, who knows? Maybe all those organizations have been infiltrated by Muslims who are, um, going to
They're
tear.
they're they're in the terrorist list. They're in the terrorist list
Right,
in the Emirates, in Saudi, in Egypt, not in the U.S.
right. It could be that those organizations have been infiltrated by people who are, it's always said it's better to tear an organization down from inside rather than outside. So who knows? It's
I don't know.
impossible to know.
I don't know. It is impossible to know. Uh, I think that they should be considered terrorist organizations regardless. You can still infiltrate them. But for 7 years, I've been advocating this, and I don't feel that we've advanced an inch towards that goal. So,
Well, the question also becomes, how much of these organizations withered on the vine?
Not this, not the Muslim Brotherhood. That's a mother of all terrorist organizations
Yeah, but
in
okay,
the Muslim world.
in the Muslim world, not in the United
Yeah.
States. No, I don't know. In 2015, the Saudis laid out their plan for dealing with jihadism,
Hmm.
and everybody said, "Oh, they're crazy. They can't do it." Well, they've
They did.
essentially done it, and it took them 10 years, but they had the patience. And Americans aren't known for their patience. I keep seeing these articles by conservatives with headlines. Americans have run out of patience with um, Pam Bondi. And it's like, really?
Yeah, 2 weeks.
Yeah. Why
They
is that?
they run out of patience in 48 hours.
Yeah. So I don't know.
No, I don't care about the patience at all, Jess. But when you mentioned the Saudis, how did the Saudis deal with imams preaching jihad?
They put them in a room and they hit them with sticks until they promise not to do it again, and then they put cameras inside their mosques.
Okay,
Oh, and they also passed a law that all sermons have to be submitted to the government before they could be read.
to ensure that there are no political uh, uh, elements to the discourse.
Well,
And yet we have imams in England, in France, in the US, calling for jihad and the destruction of the West, and we do little shit about it. And it is a crime. It's not a question of separation of church and state. It is a crime.
well, the thing to do is once a church starts getting political, then you pull their tax-free status. You know, you say, okay, you're not you. We believe in a separation of church and state, and you've crossed that line, so you're no longer a church, and
No,
you can start.
now you are a political party advocating war.
So
So in our chat, they're well informed. They're talking about Al Jubair and his definition of the Muslim Brotherhood, but you don't have to refer to one person. What the Muslim Brotherhood is, anybody who's studied the movement knows. And whether it is Egypt or Saudi, the Emirates, uh, they've all banned it. They've all uh, prohibited their activities because nobody consciously legalizes terrorism or the promotion of terrorism except us. The
that
West is,
we've always done that. We let Americans. Every bar in Boston had a jar for donations to the IRA. You know, um, we've always allowed that, and it's stupid.
suicidal.
It led to 9/11. Um, it led to an open border with you know um,
Right, because we learned nothing with 9/11.
the,
Then we turn around and we let thousands of them in.
Mhm.
And now, you have ICE and the FBI arresting some of these assholes on the streets, and and you have a bunch of imbeciles obstructing police action. In California, they just arrested, I don't know, 40 some Chinese, 20 some South Koreans in one single event. Um, Incidentally, the newspapers published nearly nothing about it. They only publish when it is a Venezuelan or a Cuban or a Mexican. Did you notice that?
And they're starting to turn away from Mexicans. The new pet for the press is the Venezuelans. All Venezuelans are they're even more innocent and cuddly than Mexicans.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if they are the original gremlins.
Well,
Whatever you do, don't put water on a Venezuelan, just in
okay.
case.
In Mexico, the cartels have started hiring Colombian mercenaries to put out landmine fields. So it's like the Mexicans don't have the will to take on the cartels because it's that whole lead or silver thing. Here, we'll give you $1 million to look the other way, or we'll kill you and we'll kill your family. So we're going to have to carry out some military action against the cartels in Mexico, and it's going to cause a lot of people to get very hot under the collar, and they're all going to scream and cry, and then they'll forget about it because nobody actually cares. As soon as the Israelis are done with Gaza, everything's going to stop, and they'll all move on to what? Um, God knows, because Palestinians there, and notice it's Gazans. It's not even the people in the West Bank. And as we were talking about, the Israelis are doing stuff in the West Bank as well, but nobody knows about it. They're all focused on Gaza. Um,
Nobody knows, for instance, that the president of Colombia has disappeared again for 2 days.
mhm.
Last time was in Paris, and he eventually spent 3 days or so in a hotel room with whores and drugs, uh, and now he's disappeared again. Uh, uh, God knows if it is for another day or so, but it looks like a relapse into drug use and all that jazz.
Well,
And nobody knows because the Jews are not involved.
the Colombians spent 40 years fighting FARC, and then they elected a FARC member as their president. So you know, these are
Well,
people who they're not rational.
well, they're not rational, but also I have to say this. This was a consequence of the deal arranged by the Pope, by Bergoglio,
Hmm.
eh, who went to Colombia, and a very Catholic country, and literally jammed a peace deal down the throats of the Colombians that had been rejected massively in a plebiscite not long before, and that led to Petro succeeding in the presidency. Uh, it's interesting because it was priests who founded the FARC. You know, Father Camilo Torres. So South America is a very tragical place. There is in literature there is the school of magical realism. I think it's tragic realism. There's nothing magical about this shit. And Petro is not FARC. He was
Also,
M19, but he benefited from the FARC deal.
well, South America also has a reversion clause. Look at Chile. Chile is was hailed as a success story of South America, and they said, you know what, let's fuck up the place. So they did, and
They didn't.
every 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 South American country that gets to be well run and successful, they all decide, you know what, this isn't our identity. Our identity is a third world shithole, so we need to go back to that,
Yep.
and they
And
do.
and they do like clockwork.
No,
The-
no. In the
it's you.
1950s,
Yeah.
in the 1950s, Venezuela had a thriving cinema. Um,
Oh yeah.
they made there was a great movie about it was a dinner party, and the guests all couldn't leave the house. They finished their dinner and they couldn't leave the house. They ended up just taking off their ties and sleeping on the floor and waking up, and nobody could explain why they couldn't leave the house, but they couldn't leave the house. They wanted to leave the house. They wanted to get on with their lives, but they couldn't. And it became like a national story. It was being covered by the press and everything. And it was like this allegory about Mexican fatalism and the need to constantly the Mexican Civil War. Nobody knows about it, but at one point the constitutionalists were running the country, and they announced that Mexico was now an atheist country, and so they started putting all the priests against the wall and killing them with firing squads. And
Yes.
so there was a Catholic revolutionary movement that sprung up. It's just like just pure madness.
Yep. If, remember that Benito Juarez was a member of the First International with Karl Marx.
Mhm.
That is the and they did more than that. They expropriated all of the church's properties in Mexico, which was the largest landowner, as it usually is. And but then they did the French thing, and they gave it back to the Catholic Church to use. So the Cathedral of Mexico City is the property of the people of Mexico, but for the exclusive use of the Catholic Church. So the Mexican people get stuck with the bill, and the priests get to use it without forking out a dime, just like France.
Yeah, yeah, and they pass around the hat every Sunday and get their donations, and you know,
Yeah, but if they need to fix something in the building, it is the government that pays for it.
yeah.
Yeah. It's God, Benito Juarez, the socialist side of Mexico. Nobody talks about that anymore, even though that would help explain a lot, a lot. How
Well,
about when
it's
they nationalized oil?
yeah. Mexico's got oil. There's no reason for Mexico to be a third world country except for the corruption and the attitude toward corruption. The in Mexico, you're corrupt because you'd be an idiot to not be corrupt. That's the attitude. Um, I remember there were these American surfers, and they always went to Mexico once a year to surf. And these are old fuckers. These are guys in their 50s. They've been surfing there since the original Beach Boys days. And they were told, don't go to Mexico anymore. And they said, oh, we've been going here for 40 years. So
Mm,
they went to Mexico and they were pulled over by the cops. And then the cops told them to go kneel by the side of the road. And then one cop came up and stood behind them. And all of a sudden, they got this frantic radio call and they left. And this female cop pulled up and she said, get in my car. And they said, well, what about our car? And she said, if you want to live, get in my car. So they piled in her car and she flew with her lights and siren going to the border and dumped them off at the border. And they lived. And they didn't know that this sort of thing was happening, but it was said that the only Mexican police officer you can trust in Mexico is a woman. You can't trust any of the men. The men will
I,
kill you,
I
as they were.
I wouldn't even trust the women. I don't trust anybody in Mexico.
Yeah, I mean, I have no plans on going to Mexico ever. You know, I think it's just madness.
Yeah. No, no. It's And it's ironic because, as you know well, I love Mexico. I love the food. I love the ruins. I love the culture. I love the music, not Norteño music, mind you. Uh, I miss Mexico City. I miss the Alameda. I miss the Palace of Bellas Artes. Uh, but I can't go because I don't trust anybody there anymore.
Well, you can get set up. Um, I saw this. It was Korean, but it's happens everywhere. There's a taxi service that was set up next to a casino, and if there's a big winner, a guy in the casino will tell the taxi driver, and the taxi driver picks this guy up. Then he says, "Oh, I'm having engine trouble. You're going to have to stay in this hotel overnight, and there's no more taxis." So he goes to the hotel, and then the hotel staff, they come in and they kill him and they steal his money and they dump his body in the river. And then the casino guy and the taxi guy and the hotel staff all split his winnings. And this is like common, you know?
Yeah,
So it's that sort of thing that I
same
always think
same
about.
thing. Same thing if you go to a bank to change currency,
Yeah,
and the cashier at the bank will call the guy outside.
yeah.
No, there's no safety anywhere in Mexico. The whole thing is broken down, and that's the problem.
Well,
That's the
another
problem.
problem is that Mexican criminals view themselves, the way you prove what a badass you are is by murdering the helpless. Um, in other countries, like okay, in this country, the first mafioso to kill a civilian was an Irish hitman named Vincent Cole, and he killed a 5-year-old when he was trying to kill somebody else. And so the mafia killed this guy like
No,
immediately. And in Mexico, it's the other way around. You don't prove your worth and your strength by going up against armed men. You prove your worth by showing how heartless you are by killing women and children, which is why the cartels are now, when they go to towns, they just randomly shoot people to show who's boss.
oh,
And
remember
there's
when
no,
they went into Reynosa
yeah,
and they literally quartered people. About 30 some people were literally disemboweled and cut into pieces
yeah.
and
And
strewn about city square so that you know who's the new boss.
right. And when you have a person like that who runs from armed conflict with a trained opponent and preys on children to prove how badass they are, they just have to be exterminated. They
Yeah,
they they can't be
they're
they
like
can't
Hamas.
be yeah, yeah. It's true. It's absolutely true.
They're like Hamas. In Mexico, this is going to go on forever until somebody gets serious about killing cartels.
Well, speaking of the third world, the current president of Serbia
Oof.
is a guy who made his bones with a Serbian football hooligan gang. And in Serbia, the football hooligans are actually the muscle of the
Of
Serbian
the Serbian
mafia
nationalists.
and the mafia.
Yep.
So the current president has been exposed multiple times with having, you know, cheek to jowl ties with Serbian organized crime. And Serbia has been undergoing public protests that are the largest in the country's history for months now. And of course, nothing is done because they're asking corrupt people to do the right thing, which isn't going to happen. Um, but in Serbia, the police discovered a slaughterhouse with an industrial meat grinder where the cronies of the Serbian president would put their opponents down the meat grinder and produce what goes into sausages and then just pump it into the river. And if this isn't a third world country, I don't know what is.
I don't think it makes it to third world.
True.
I don't think it makes it to third world. People have the wrong idea um, about first world, third world. These are all uh, old definitions
Mm-hmm.
that no longer adjust to reality. If there is a first world, there is only one country in it,
And we're sitting in it.
and we're sitting in it. And there are a couple of aspirants, ironically, Arab countries.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but insofar as more than half of the population are migrant workers from Indonesia or India, it doesn't quite qualify. You know, the members of the royal family live in a first world country. The rest of the country does not.
Also, just real quick, a huge problem among the Gulf countries is intermarriage. Like, you have so many people marrying their cousins that
Yes,
you have a massive birth defect, and it's impacting the population. They have to.
no,
There's so many things that.
it's like the royal house of Luxembourg. You know, they're all idiots
Yeah,
after a while.
yeah. No, you have to cleanse the population of that idea. Um,
Yeah,
but anyway, go
not
ahead.
easy, not easy. But anyway, then Europe was considered to be first world too. I never did. After living in Europe in the 80s, I came to the conclusion that at best, second.
Yeah,
But
I
the
agree.
problem is that many of these countries have slid further down. So I do believe that today, Spain, Greece are definitely third world countries.
Hmm.
Uh, England is holding on to second world more or less like I was holding on to 65 years before midnight. Not for long, because they're on their way to becoming a third world country. And if they don't resolve that problem with migration, with indiscriminate migration that is destroying the fabric of their society, it's not going to work. They're going to be a third world country faster than I can say, oh shit. Then there is the real third world: Brazil,
Hmm.
Chile, Serbia, Romania. And then there are these barbarian tribes. I don't think that Russia is more evolved than Nigeria, and probably
Yep.
marginally more evolved than Sudan, which are the real shitholes in this world. You know, African shitholes are really shitholes. It's almost impossible to reproduce, and that's about it. I mean, everybody else in the world lives like shit, lives like our country
Yeah,
did
yeah,
200 years ago. By the way,
yeah. And
you know what I got this week? Yeah, say that while I grab a piece of paper here. That's another thing that I had here. Remember when we were discussing the price of pharmaceuticals in the US.
Hmm.
Uh, I'm getting these things from Medicare and certain medications, and it's how much I paid, how much the plan paid, and the total drug price, which is supposed to be terribly expensive, right?
Hmm.
Okay. The most expensive drug here is $4, of which I paid nothing because I have Medicare Advantage. Four
Hmm.
bucks, 4 months supply. Atorvastatin, the month supply is 85 cents. Total
Hmm.
cost. I'm beginning not to understand this discussion anymore because I see the prices that Medicaid is paying, and they can hardly be said to be the most expensive in the world at all. And if this is the most expensive in the world, we're talking fucking cents here.
When I lived in Norway, you had to get a doctor's prescription to get aspirin. And my mother once had a headache and she went to the pharmacy and she asked for aspirin. They said, "Where's your prescription?" And
Yep.
she didn't have one. So she went out, and outside, she was approached by an American woman who said, I just heard that. Look, I've got a bottle of aspirin in my purse. Let's go around the corner here. So they went into an alley, and this American woman gave her some aspirin like it was a drug deal. And, um,
Well, it
I just
was in
thought,
Norway.
true. And I thought, how is this helping the people of Norway get a
It
to get a
isn't.
prescription for aspirin? Okay,
It
Norway.
isn't.
Is Norway is as much as an oil based economy as Saudi Arabia, even more so. But I would say that Norway is a second verging on third world country due to
Yep.
tribalism, due to corruption, due
And the
to
trolls.
the trolls, due to alcoholism, irrationality, uh, belligerence. Norwegians are easily the most belligerent. Okay, Canadians are the most belligerent people I met, but Norwegians come in a close second. And
Hmm.
my question always was, you guys are always bragging about what a wonderful life you have. Why are you all so angry? Why are you all drunks? And the answer is because in Norway, if you're going to paint your house, you have to go get permission from all your neighbors. Um, and if even one says, "I don't want you to paint your house," then you can't.
Good. And let's face it. Of course, rich people anywhere in the world live very well.
Oh yeah.
But the houses in which our working Americans live in most of the country, I'm sure that in Manhattan is comparable to Europe, that is small little closets for apartments. But the comforts that they have in Norway are equivalent to our lower classes here. Um, They don't have a good life.
My sister had to be hospitalized for appendicitis, and my father had to be hospitalized for a sinus hemorrhage and a nasal hemorrhage. In the case of my sister, they didn't have any rooms, so her bed was put in the hallway.
Yep.
So the whole time she was in the hospital, she spent 2 days in the hospital in the hallway. Um, and in the case of my father, he was in the hospital for over a week. They didn't bring him any change of dressing gown or sheets. So we brought him fresh sheets and a bathrobe and t-shirt, underwear, socks every day. Um, and both times I went to the hospital to visit my sister, my father, I didn't see a staffer anywhere in the entire hospital. They were all on break
Mm.
like 100% of the time. And the treatment,
Yes.
the treatment was third world. It was probably state of the art in Zimbabwe, um, but the hospital was dirty. Um, it was terrible, and I've been hospitalized.
Sounds like South America.
Yeah, I've been hospitalized multiple times in this country, and my only complaint is that you can't get any sleep. Um,
They pester you every five
they
minutes.
pester you. They come in. The last time I was in the hospital in California, I couldn't get any painkiller. Uh, it used to be that if you had surgery or whatever, hey, they gave you a morphine drip, and you could control it yourself. Yep.
I know, with the green button. I love the green button.
But
I miss it.
the last time I went, there was no morphine, but they offered me a Percocet. Percocet doesn't do anything.
Mm-mm.
Um, but the government here is looking out for you. That's why our quality of life is going through the roof.
I'll tell you one thing. I've been in hospitals a few times. I had some surgeries in Miami. Well, not Miami proper. Oh, actually, one, yes. One was in North Miami. Eh, as you well know, 2 years ago, I spent a lot of time with my father in a hospital. And they're like five-star hotel rooms in Europe.
Mm-hmm.
Even in this chicken feed town where I live, there is a regional hospital. And I had my maxillofacial surgery to get the cancer out in this regional hospital with the team of doctors that came from Virginia Commonwealth University, which are the kind of like the best team you can get on the East Coast for this. And for crying out loud, it was a five-star hotel room in Europe when I
Mm-hmm.
got. And I did get the green button.
Mm-hmm.
It is, you know, they're, they're going to, what is this? Morphine? No, I don't want any morphine. It's okay. Okay. The nurse has to be okay. If you don't want it, you don't want it. And after surgery, when the shit that they give you in surgery wears off, I start getting this intense and intensifying pain.
Mm-hmm.
So I called the nurse and said, "Remember when I told you I didn't want morphine yet? Now I do. Just don't worry, I put it in anyhow. I knew you'd come around. Just press on the green button." What an invention, man! it's, it was pain free post op until they let me out.
Yeah, yeah,
Uh, so, and this was, like I said, original hospital. Uh, I didn't have to pay a fucking dime of anything.
I was born with a baby tooth here with no permanent tooth under it, and the thing about baby teeth is they have no roots.
Hmm.
And this baby tooth was there until about a year ago, and then it started to rot. So
All right.
I my current health plan used to cover dental, and Blue Shield decided not to cover dental anymore. So I was able to find a good dentist that accepted cash payments. It's a boutique dentistry, and what they did was they removed the baby tooth. Then they shaved down the jawbone and implanted. I chose an implant. They
Yeah.
said you can have a dental bridge or an implant. The dental bridge will eventually cause your bone to start eroding. So I chose an implant, and they have to put a metal socket into the bone,
Yeah, they
and
cement the metal socket in the bone and with the screw,
the screw, yeah,
and then
that's where the
yeah,
crown goes in. And that was the most disgusting. The only way they can tell that the socket is positioned correctly is if it goes up against the nerve that's inside your jawbone. So they can't give you any painkiller, and you have to tell them, yes, it hurts like absolute fuck, so you're in the right place.
oh, lovely.
Scrape, 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 thud, thud, scrape, scrape, thud, thud. And then afterwards, they gave me a prescription for Tylenol, and it was like, why bother? Like you know, um,
Yeah, here paracetamol.
exactly. And luckily, the pain went away only in a couple of days. But okay, that place, it's a little boutique dentistry. You could eat dinner off the floor. I mean, it is the nicest place. I checked the doctor. The doctor is a great doctor. He has his little dentistry has 6 offices, and uh, uh, basically they have like one dentist who sort of rotates around
Yeah,
inside each office, and then when they have to do major situations like the one here, the owner himself comes. But um, it was great, and since I paid cash, they let me get the crown for half price. If they'd gone through insurance, it would have been double the price. Um,
yeah. Yeah.
but
That same amount would have been your copay,
exactly.
your co-insurance. I'm sorry.
But what I also learned is that if you're going to get implants, only billionaires can afford to get an implant for every tooth, um, and I would not recommend it, because that just getting one, that was the worst treatment. It was worse than a spinal tap. I Up until now I thought the spinal tap was the worst um, medical procedure I'd ever endured, but having that done, that was the worst I've ever endured. And I kept I kept tightening up like a board, and they would say, "Can you relax down in the chair?" And I do that. But
Mine was when they had to take a biopsy out of this.
oh yeah,
I had the fucking dentist with a knee on my chest,
yep,
hammering at that place,
yeah, yeah.
and it's like, oh my god. And the good news too is that it was so perfect that I got an infection on it. My face became something like this, and I went back to the doctor's office because it's like, do you have something for this? And the nurse took one look at me and she shat her pants. And within 5 minutes, I was in a hospital going to the OR to open and clean this whole thing.
Yeah, because
And
that's
apparently,
it's close to your brain.
oh God, apparently, I didn't know, but I was very close to pushing daisies.
Yeah, yeah.
If that infection traveled 1 inch in any direction.
Well,
God,
what's really terrifying is that your brain is covered with a protective membrane, and
yes.
sometimes an infection can get through that. It's one in a billion. But there's a British composer who had a herpes infection, and it went into his brain, and it caused a very specific brain damage that now his short-term memory lasts about a minute.
Hmm.
So every minute the world is brand new. So
You're
I
always surprised.
yeah, he can't retain any information. He knows the names of his children. He knows everything for long-term memory.
Anything that's older, anything that he filed, Earlier, he remembers. It's like Alzheimer's.
Yeah, exactly. And he was he was so panicked, and he could not be. You couldn't explain to him what was happening because he couldn't retain the new information.
Right.
And eventually, he somehow stopped being panicked, and he's been living like this for over 45 years. And
I suppose at one point it becomes his reality.
exactly,
There's nothing to panic because this is the way it is.
yeah, he somehow managed to understand that this is all due to a medical condition. And once he understood that, but I mean, that's you couldn't do anything. You would need round the clock care because
Mm.
you know. Um, did you ever hear of a movie called The Endless? The Endless is about
I
a
think,
place in the United States that if you get trapped in, you get trapped in a time loop. And
no, I haven't seen it.
for every person, the time loop is different. And the worst case is a Confederate officer who's trapped in a 3 second time loop. So he's sitting in a rocking chair, listening to a Victrola in a tent, and he gets up out of his chair, then he appears back in the chair. He gets up out of his chair, then he appears back in the chair. And he's been doing this since 1865.
God,
Exactly.
I can't imagine the leg pain.
Well, I mean, I in the movie, there's no escape from the time loop, and so you know
Hmm.
you're going to be stuck doing there, living there for that. But that was quite a concept for me because you know that whole notion of being stuck repeating yourself over and over and over for all eternity. Whew.
It's like being Elizabeth Warren.
Well, be a Democrat of any sort.
Now you know how they feel.
Yeah.
Uh, God.
No, I mean
Yeah,
the Democrats, they all grow to believe what they say. That's why Elizabeth Warren, when she first, I remember when she first hit the big stage with her big speech on "You Didn't Build That." Remember
Mm-hmm.
that? She was
Yep.
all calm, and now she's all shrill and hysterical because she's come to believe all the nonsense that she pumps out.
And she's also realizing nobody takes her seriously.
Yeah. No, when she's at a podium outside before the election, shrieking, and she just sounded like a chicken having its throat, its neck wrung. I mean, it was
Yeah.
terrible,
Looks
and
the part too.
everyone was just making fun of her. Um, I don't know.
I, I swear to God, when I see her again, I'm going to ask her about her cheeks.
Yeah,
Oh, you have beautiful protruding cheeks. Are you Cherokee by any chance?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, you can't take it. I cannot take him seriously anymore. I'm so fucking tired of this. Everybody in social media, everybody everywhere, is in a constant state of outrage and panic or both. And I can't stand it anymore. It's like the first time that I saw a certain comedy, I don't know, The Mask.
Mm,
Mm, Not a particularly brilliant movie, but the first time was entertaining.
mm,
The second time I saw it with the kids, it wasn't entertaining. The third time, I wanted to find a window and jump off of it.
yeah, yeah.
And if I ever see it a fourth time, I probably will. That's what's happening to me and Democrats. They don't outrage me anymore. They don't upset me. They just bore me to tears. I can't stand it anymore. They are like an Indian movie.
Well,
My
yeah.
wife, yeah,
Uh-huh. Go ahead. Your wife?
my wife after dinner today decided she wanted to see an Indian movie. And it came in very handy because within 10 minutes I was sound asleep. And she woke me up 20 minutes before the show. Um, I can't stand it. I can't pay attention. I cannot analyze. They just bore me to tears and put me to sleep.
I saw
There's nothing. Yeah.
An Indian commando movie, and at some point they were going to raid some enemy bunker, and the guy giving orders, he was doing it half in English and half in Hindi. It was just like, pick a language, buddy. I mean, you know, apparently this is a real thing, because
Yeah.
otherwise they wouldn't put it in the movie.
No, no, no. They switch. They switch constantly. And it's been like that forever. It's been like that forever. It's not a new thing. But I'm telling you, it's Elizabeth Warwick. She cannot make me upset.
Well, the thing about the Democrats is that they'll never surprise you. They'll never surprise you in a
Mm.
good way. Like
Or
AOC,
in any way.
yeah, AOC will never say anything that makes you go, "Wow, I never thought of it that way." She'll never do that in her entire life. You know,
No.
Jasmine
Yeah.
Crockett. Jasmine Crockett will never say anything. It's like hearing Greta Thunberg talk about Israel. She gets up, she gives a whole speech about Israel, and she doesn't say anything of value in the entire speech.
True. And that's the thing. Is there anything she can say that you will say, "Oh shit"?
No, of
Can
course
Bernie Sanders surprise you?
not. No.
I'm not saying gladly surprise you in any way.
No.
No, to me, it's done, and unfortunately, because there was a moment in time that it was oddly entertaining. Jasmine Crockett pretending to be a ghetto girl was oddly entertaining. It was like Whoopi Goldberg pretending to be Jamaican. Remember that?
Mhm.
And but not anymore. They've bored me.
Well, okay, Netflix went through this period where they had like a huge number of movies starring only black people. And this was around 2021 or so. And all of these movies were huge bombs. And it's not because this is a racist country, but this is because this is a niche movie. This is a movie that's only going to appeal to a certain percentage of the population, small percentage.
Yes,
I saw a movie called Overlord, which was about the D-Day invasion, and the main character was a black guy. He was in a mixed race unit, but his blackness never came up in the whole movie. At some point, he was captured by the Nazis. They didn't insult his race. It literally never came up in the whole movie, and I really enjoyed the movie because I was waiting
right.
for that moment where oh, you're a black. It never came up. It literally never came up. They made a movie. They gave a guy a starring role, and they said, the script never said this is our black paratrooper. He was a paratrooper. That's all. And he spoke French, so he could speak to the French resistance because he was from somewhere in Louisiana. And they could barely understand his French. But
I was going to say.
yeah,
Creole may have been born of French But today, it's like Indo-European and English. It's no longer understandable.
Well, apparently
Um,
the French make fun of French Canadian French. If you're French
oh yes, they
Canadian and
do.
you go to France, they make fun of
They
you.
do. They do. And when a Canadian says he is from Montreal, you can hear the French laughing all the way to the Pyrenees, because it's of course Montreal. Eh, Montreal, Montreal. There is a difference in pronunciation there, and it goes way more than that. Um, I like the numbers. In the French have a numbering system based on 20, because they have 10 fingers and 10 toes, and that's as far as they can count. And when you get to uh, 80, you don't say 80, you say 80, 4 times 20. 90, you don't say 90, you say 90, 4 times 20 plus 10. That's the name of the number. In Switzerland, they actually say without nonant. And the French make abundant fun of these people who don't know how to say 4 times 20 plus 10. They're very sick people. Very sick people. People are still talking about chronic pain. I
About
think
what?
I think we hit a nerve.
About what?
Chronic pain.
Hmm.
I think we hit a nerve over there. Oh well. That's not a problem for Hunter Biden, who is being bugged most of the time. But I'm getting a happy birthday from Gonzalo. It's we're at the time, so I'm gonna be sure. But I'm so glad that we started cleaning up New York and Boston. And by the way, they're in Miami, Arizona. They're all over the fucking place.
Hmm.
They're all over the fucking place. And the command is arrest of illegals has to go up to at least 3,000 a day.
Hmm.
That's the target for the moment. I hope they make it six, but right now 3,000 a day. It's gonna be wonderful.
Hmm.
It's gonna be wonderful. I was thinking what the economic implications of these will be, and in places like California, the savings on state uh, paid for healthcare alone is going to be quite a bonanza.
Yeah, because if you come to California as an illegal, you can get everything free.
Hmm.
Literally everything.
Oh, I just got a message from a guy you know too, that he just started watching, and he only now got to the point that Peru has no relation to the Inca. Can you believe there are Mexicans who vindicate their Aztec origins? You gotta be fucking shit. They're all dead. If you have anything to do with the Aztecs, you're dead and buried.
Also, the Aztecs, I mean, the worst thing that could happen to Mexico would be if they were still being run by Aztecs.
Well, no, because they were very efficient in culling the herd.
That's what I mean. How would these,
Yeah, I know that's what you mean.
you
What
know,
I mean is that's not a bad thing.
no, the Aztecs got wiped out because they were kidnapping their neighbors and chopping their hearts out as human sacrifices. The the neighbors. I mean, it was what 600 Spaniards, 200 Spaniards.
Less
Yeah,
50.
and the whole rest of the army was all neighbors of the Aztecs who wanted to get rid of them.
Yeah. Oh, people were sick and fucking tired of having their family kidnapped by the Aztecs for their sacrifices.
Yeah.
And God, it's and people think that it was the Spaniards that defeated the Aztecs. No, it was the tribes. The Spaniards somehow acted as a unifying force. Mm. And then what people don't know is that the latest descendant of Moctezuma is a marquis in Spain.
Mhm.
Think about that for a second. The conqueror is a peer of the kingdom of Spain. They're called Grande de España. So I don't know. Black legends and some people would answer, no, the real bad ones were the English who brought them blankets with smallpox. Yeah, sure. Get the fuck out of here. Find Ward Churchill wherever the hell he's getting drunk now and stay with him.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
you never heard from him again, did you?
No, because he was a buffoon. I mean, he managed to fool people for decades. Um, I mean, that sort of stuff still happens. All you have to do. I remember the kids from some Christian school, and some Indian veteran was playing a drum in their face, and they were
Oh
smiling,
yeah,
and
yeah.
suddenly they were accused of being racist, and they interviewed this guy, and he was talking about his time in Vietnam as a long range recon patroller, and it turned out he was a military refrigerator repairman. He never left the continental United States during the war.
Mm. By the way, that kid won millions,
Yeah, yeah.
millions when he sued the media
Well,
for their treatment of him.
Trump is suing 60 Minutes, and they keep making him offers. He keeps saying nope, 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 nope.
Nope, no, you're gonna pay for this one. And what was it? There was somebody, some judge in Florida allowed another one of Trump's lawsuits to go through. Oh, the New York Times
Hmm.
and the Pulitzer,
Hmm.
um, and they tried um, to get it dismissed, but no, it's going to trial.
Hmm.
And if it's going to trial, they're going to have. Uh, it's called an anno contra natura. Uh, Trump is going to rip him a new asshole.
Hmm.
Not a moment too soon. Anyway, we're practically done, and as you know, now I'm older, so my bedtime needs to be accordingly adjusted. Bullshit. Uh, uh, so, do you have anything that you wanted to talk to and I didn't let you? No,
Nine.
amazing. I'm doing so well. Okay, in my case, people, thank you so much for coming and watching this. I've been watching the numbers, and the numbers are augmenting as we go through. And considering at what hour we're doing this, I'm, as usual, surprised. Um, Please support us any which way you can. Since we cannot have the contributions on the chat and the memberships and all that jazz yet, because Odyssey are still having a sissy fit with merchant services, please do so. If you are on Odyssey, right under the video, there are a couple of links that you can hit to drop a buck. If you're not on Odyssey and you don't want to click to come to Odyssey because one click is too much effort, you can go to quadrum.com/support us and drop either a one-time contribution or a monthly contribution, which would be very much appreciated. And if you're watching this on the Bluebird of my discontent, you can go to at the Bradley and subscribe. And incidentally, on Monday, I'm going to start a little space for subscribers only so that we can have a conversation with everybody there. Let's see what happens. And of course, Thomas, you're always invited. Whether you want to go or not, it's an entirely different problem, but you're always invited. And having said all of that, yep, that's it. So, a last word, my friend.
Aureate.
Areate.
Aureate.
Oh, AU. Okay. Aureate. Thank you so much. And I'll see you next week. For tomorrow, people, I'm going to celebrate my birthday in the quad meet. So be there. Good night.